Why don't we go ahead and get started? I will call the regular meeting of the Temple City City Council, March 2nd, 2020 to order. We'll start with our usual disclaimer that pursuant to Section 3 of Executive Order N29-20 issued by Governor Newsom. Wow, it's hard to believe it was on March 17th of 2020. We're almost a year later. Here we are. Cities are allowed to hold city council meetings via teleconferencing, and members of the public can observe and address the meeting telephonically or electronically. So those who are calling in, your audio will be unmuted during public comment. And when public comment is open during an agendized item discussion, if you wish to speak, please state your name and you'll be added to the speakers list. Also email your request to speak, city clerk at templecity.us. You should do that now and indicate on the subject line the item you wish to provide comment. So I will begin by asking our city clerk to please take roll call.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Mann?
Here.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Here.
Councilmember Vizcarra?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yu?
Here.
Mayor Chavez?
Here. Okay, so I'm pleased to welcome back again our illustrious Jerry Jambazian from Wonder Cleaners and Draperies, who will be so kind as to provide our invocation this evening. Is Jerry with us?
Yes, I'm here, Mayor.
Okay, Jerry, I'm turning it over to you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's bow in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, tonight as we transition to new leadership on our City Council, we thank you for the leadership and commitment from Mayor Tom Chavez for the third time, and welcome Mayor Pro Tem Vincent Yu. Thank you to our City Council and their leadership during a difficult year filled with challenges. Also, Lord, thank you to city staff for ensuring that city services would go forward. As was outlined in the State of the City tonight, our city is in good hands and going forward. Our Camellia Festival just celebrated their theme of everyday heroes. We salute all those who are our heroes, including teachers, healthcare professionals, first responders, our active service personnel, our sheriffs and firefighters. We pray for your love and compassion to abound as we walk through this challenging season. We ask for wisdom for our city council who bear the load of making decisions with widespread consequences. We pray for those who are suffering with sickness and all who are caring for them. We ask for protection for the elderly and the vulnerable to not succumb to the risk of the virus. We mourn for all those who have lost loved ones. We pray for misinformation to be curbed, that fear may take no hold in the hearts and minds of our people. As we exercise the good sense that you in your mercy provide, may we also approach each day in faith and peace, trusting in the truth of your goodness towards us. We ask this all in your name and for your sake. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. And you stay safe as well.
Thank you, sir.
Well, why don't we go ahead and stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. There's our flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we will now move on to our ceremonial matters. And our first item of business is, of course, our City Council reorganization. And before we get to the business at hand, I see that I am supposed to start with remarks by our outgoing mayor, which I believe is me. So it seems like yesterday that I was the incoming mayor, but how time flies when you're having fun, right? Before I get to my brief remarks, and I promise they will be brief, since I've just finished the State of the City address, but I do want to recognize, and I didn't get the opportunity last week, and that is to recognize our participants in our virtual Citizens Academy. As many of you know, we had our first virtual Citizens Academy last week, and we had quite a number of participants. I hope that they found it to be both informative and enjoyable. And real quickly, I would like to give a shout out to all of them by mentioning their names. We have certificates, of course, that will be going out to each and every one of them. And hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to meet with them and thank them personally. So I want to thank Chi Ming, Jay Wong, Connie Liu, Debbie Sia, Heidi W., Jeffrey Zhu, Jerry Jambazian, Katie H., Michael Stoll, Oscar Bustamante, Rachel, Richard Talavera, Robert, Celine Sun, and Suraj Shah. So thank all of you for participating. And again, I hope you had a great time and you learned a lot. I also want to give a special thanks, of course, to Brian Cook, our city manager, our department heads who provided the expert lessons in local government. I think it was a good opportunity for the public to observe firsthand what we already know, and that is that we have great people working for our city. I want to give a special thanks, of course, to Ileana Flores, Kenny Chan, and Red 88 Media for organizing and putting the program together, as well as the State of the City address. Special thanks to Mark, Travis, and Lynn from Red 88 Media for all their help in the State of the City address. I know they did their best to try to make me look and sound like a mayor. So thank you very much for all your help. Now, I know that I've taken a lot of kidding in the past as the so-called disaster mayor. Well, the last 12 months have, I think, gone way beyond that label. We were all presented with unique challenges, to say the least. But I want to say that I'm so proud of my colleagues on the city council, all the work that they've done in the past 12 months to make sure that Temple City remains safe and open for business. Of course, our city manager, Brian Cook, our city attorney, Greg Murphy, have provided professional services that were most needed in these last few months, and they've done it in a fantastic manner and have really led the way for us. Of course, our entire City Hall staff, our service organizations, our Chamber of Commerce, our service organizations, of course, as I said, our nonprofit organizations, they all really stepped up in these past 12 months and have helped to make sure that the city keeps running. And of course, big shout out to our sheriff department, who, as we heard in the State of the City address, have helped us to become one of the safest cities in the state of California. And, I wish Captain Reyes, of course, good luck in his new position. I know that he will do well, and he has a great team over there. But, I want to say my biggest thanks, of course, to our residents and to our businesses. I want to thank you all for your patience and resilience throughout these past months. You've all been such a bright light in otherwise, I guess we could say, dark times. However, we see that those times are getting brighter as the days go by, and I just urge everyone to stay vigilant and just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll all get out of this soon. So again, thank you all for your support. I know that our future mayor and mayor pro tem will continue to lead Temple City in the right direction. And so with that, I will now turn it over to Peggy Kuo, our city clerk, for nominations for mayor. Peggy?
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. I would like to call for the nomination for the seat of the mayor.
It would be my pleasure to nominate Vincent Yu for the position of mayor.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing that there are no additional nominations, Mayor Pro Tem Yu is appointed mayor by acclamation. Congratulations, sir.
Yay. Thank you all for the confidence and really, got big shoes to fill here after our Mayor Chavez. It's hard to call you not Mayor Chavez. I mean, really, after a whole year of your leadership, thank you so much. At this point, I would like to call for the nomination of the seat of Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have any nominations? Actually,
Mayor
I
Yu.
would like to make a nomination.
Well, Mayor Yu, I would nominate Cynthia Sternquist as mayor pro tem.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? If not, that Council Member Sternquist will be now our Mayor Pro Tem. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think at this time we have some presentation to the new mayor, new mayor pro tem, and the outgoing mayor. So
Yes, Mayor Yu, with delivered to your house today, to Mayor Chavez's house was a nice bouquet of flowers. I don't see them in the background, but they're somewhere.
No, I don't have them in the background. I'm sorry, but I can tell you they are very beautiful. Thank you very much. And I don't know where I can put them now, either here in the house or take them to my office. It depends on where I'm going to be, I guess, the most, so that I can enjoy them. But thank you very much for those those flowers.
And as we are virtually, being mailed to your house is congratulatory certificates from Senator Rubio, Congresswoman Judy Chu, Assemblymember Chow, and Supervisor Barger as well. So all those are coming virtually as well. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Former Mayor Chavez.
Thank you.
yeah, like I said, it's hard not to call them Mayor Chavez. We're so used to it. So with that, I'd like to ask the fellow council members for your comments. Maybe starting with Councilmember Min.
Thank you, Mayor Yu. I guess for this part, I will refer to both you and Mayor Chavez. I really want to thank and congratulate Mayor Chavez for, by all measures, a successful year in leading all of us. Not just, I think your steady, calm, cool leadership in a time of unprecedented, this global pandemic has been really beneficial to all of us. I feel like that has allowed us to become stronger in the last year, to navigate through uncharted waters. I mean, sure, we might joke about it, but I think the whole disaster mayor title says a lot, really, what you bring to the table in terms of your initiative and everything help make us better. So I really appreciate it. For me, going through a year of your mayorship, Tom, reminds me of when I was first elected, because when I was first elected, you were mayor. So to me, that always, it's something on a personal level. I always appreciate a special place in my heart. Moving forward, also excited to, I want to congratulate Mayor Vincent Yu, also your third time as mayor, I believe. I know we're still in the midst of this pandemic, but having two veteran council members who have been mayors many times before, it kind of, to me, gives a great sense of continuity in what I believe we as a council can continue to do to help make Temple City a better place. So very much looking forward to working with you, Mayor Yu. And of course, my congratulations to Mayor Pro Tem Cynthia Sternquist. Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist also a special place in my heart because we were part of the same election cycle, albeit you were the incumbent council member. But it's always been a pleasure to work with you and learn. So I'm very happy you are our Mayor Pro Tem for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Min. Councilmember Viscara, would you like to say something to our outgoing mayor?
I would. Tom, I didn't expect anything other than what you did. You did a great job. You continued in having the experience that we've always had with you, and you lend a calm demeanor to the things that we do, and you're obviously a professional, and it shows. So you've done well. I appreciate the fact that you've been patient with me, and I was glad to be able to support you in the things that you were doing. And Cindy, congratulations to you. But Vince, I think you're in for an interesting year with coming to the end of COVID and hopefully to the end of COVID and all the changes that we're going to have to deal with and the things that we're still dealing with. You'll probably get a little of both, and hopefully it'll be all good from here on out. So congratulations to the three of you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Viscara.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom, for a great year. I think we've all learned our lesson in not teasing you about being the disaster mayor, because it was a self-fulfilling prophecy that came to be there. But thank you for always being willing with your busy schedule to go above and beyond and support Temple City and the community, and of course your fellow council members. So thank you very much. Mayor Yu, it's great to have you in the position of mayor, and I know your experience as mayor in the past and work on the planning commission will continue to lead us in a direction that we're all looking forward to hopefully be back to normal by the time you are no longer the mayor. So let's just pray that we'll all be out and about within the next 5 or 6 months, and just want to wish you both the best.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist. And I too echo my fellow council members for our gratitude to outgoing Mayor Chavez. And while we joke about this disaster mayor position, but honestly, I have nothing but praise for Mayor Chavez. I mean, we just came listen to probably one of the greatest State of the City speech to see you that talk about our city during this pandemic and how the city services are continuing, and then there's so many initiatives we're still continuing, and we really appreciate those great words, and I know how hard you work. People may not see that. As a mayor, you do carry special duties and responsibilities, especially during this pandemic. So I really want to thank you for that, for your leadership, and as a citizen myself as well. I mean, it's good to know that you're out there and looking out for everybody's interest. So at this time, I also want to thank really the constituents here of Temple City. You've trusted us, and it's truly a privilege and an honor to serve on the city council, in particular as the mayor for the coming year. And I have the good fortune, and hopefully in the coming year, that this pandemic will no longer be with us. There's so many things that we're looking forward to have. And at this point, I in particular want to point to one of the projects we've been working on, and in particular, Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist been had contributed so much. That is our Temple City Library. As Mayor Chavez had pointed out in his speech, that we're really looking for a fairly soon-to-be open library. So we're really looking forward to that. And also, like the Mayor Chavez had mentioned, that we have worked very, very hard for a number of years now on the Primrose Park. So hopefully within the coming year, that we will be able to open that as well for the entire city to enjoy. With that, I really want to thank my fellow council members, every single one of you. As a mayor and with a full-time job, there were so many times I count on all of you to help me out, and I want to thank all of you for your support. And not the least, Mr. Cook, the city manager, and our very dedicated city staff, Sheriff's Department, our Fire Department, all our first responders. Looking forward to working with you in the coming year. Thank you. With that, I'll move on to item number 6 on our agenda, public comment on items not listed on the agenda. So for those calling in, we'll now unmute your audio. Clark, do we have anybody calling in?
Yes,
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
We do have one
So please
caller.
say your name.
Franklin Riddell.
Mr. Riddell,
Yes,
go ahead.
I'm coming to call, yes, and congratulate all of you, but on a little different subject. The USO is out to raise some money, and I would like to see those who are listening and whatnot give the amounts that they feel appropriate to support our troops through the USO. Being retired military myself, I wanted to bring that to the table, and I unfortunately didn't get there quite timely, but through the aid of your city clerks, it made it possible, and I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I meant to also say that for those of you who call in, please state your name, and the city clerk will call you on you to speak. Anyone else who's online?
We have other callers. Let me see. Their audio have been unmuted, but there are no requests to speak.
I mean, one of the callers is me, because I called in myself. Okay, have we received any emails, Ms. City Clerk?
There are no email requests to speak.
Okay. With that, I will close public comment and moving on to item number 7, consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion as recommended, and let's remove for further discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Vizcarra,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist,
Yes,
Mayor Yu.
So consent calendar has been approved. Moving on to item number 8, public hearing. There is none. Unfinished business, there is none. We do have one new business. That is the award of contract for the Primrose Park project. Mr. City Manager Cook,
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
Mayor Yu,
yes, Member Tim Sternquist.
I need to recuse myself because I have real estate interests within 500 feet. And so I wish everyone a good evening and congratulations again, Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, Tom.
Congrats to you too.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Yu, members of the council. Just for the record, Councilmember Sternquist has left the meeting and has left the video as well. So she is not viewing this. She can view this as a member of the public as well on our YouTube channel, but is not participating in the meeting at this point. Thank you, Mayor Yu and members of the council. We've come to a critical point in the project and an exciting point as well. First, I'd like to thank the standing committee of Mayor Yu and Councilmember Mann, who we've had several meetings with since the bidding process has begun. And Director Matsumoto will go over very shortly the recommendations both of staff and what the standing committee has reviewed as the items before you tonight. To summarize, and if I was to summarize one aspect of it, you're going to hear a phrase called value engineering. Value engineering is not cheapening a project. Value engineering is finding the ways to make a project work within the original concept and construct of what the council approved. And we'll go over that tonight. Again, I'd like to thank the standing committee for all of their help and guidance to this process. Our architects with DVD, Dwayne, and also to our project management team with Transtech in the form of Ali Khair and his entire team. Mr. Matsumoto will go over what we're looking for tonight. There will be one aspect of the motion before the council considers the item tonight that I would like to just add that's not in the staff report related to future funding. So well, if it's okay, Mayor Yu, I'll turn it over to Director Matsumoto for his presentation.
Yeah, please, Director Matsumoto, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor Yu, and congratulations on your appointment. My internet has been spotty, so please stop me if at any point I start to break up. Today we have our Primrose Park project, as you had mentioned before. It's a long project, that's coming to very important keystone moments for moving forward. Tonight we'll move on to the next slide. We'll provide an overview for the project. So back in December, the City Council authorized the notice of invitation for bids. It was a successful bid process in that we had received a total of 15 bids from various contractors. The bids range, and this is for the construction costs specifically, from 2.4 million up to 3.8 million. So with that bid range, the parent low bid right now is approximately $550,000 over our projected budget, which is our total grant amount, which is at $2.9 million. Just of note for the council that roughly $550,000 overage does include a 10% contingency budget. So that's the 10% we add on top of the costs to account for any potential increases, whether that be materials or other unexpected costs that may come up. I wanted to go over with the council a little bit in more detail how that $2.4 million low bid turns into an overage in terms of the total project cost. So the construction budget by the lowest responsible bidder was at $2.4 million. In addition to that, we have pulled out as a separate line item that the city is purchasing directly through contract is our playground and exercise equipment, which is in the $420,000 range. You'll see that contingency amount, which is $247,000, which is a 10% on the construction budget. And then finally, there's the design and construction management costs, often considered pre-construction costs, which will tally $350,000. So when you add all those up, our total project budget then becomes just under a $3.5 million project, and that's where that overage amount comes into play. Now, once we received the low bid and that evaluation was completed by the project management team, we felt it was important to go back to the standing committee. And we presented this information to the standing committee, and we wanted to present options, not just a project that was over budget, but different ways that we can help mitigate that cost concern and get it to a point where we feel comfortable, that it's going to be much, much closer to that grant amount, which is $2.9 million. So back on February 12th, city staff met with the standing committee. And through those discussions, the standing committee had a few recommendations to the city council. One was to review the value engineering options for 4 different aspects of the Primrose Park project. So that would include the decorative fence panels, precast seating, shade structures, and the playground itself. In addition, there was a recommendation to council to consider alternate funding sources once we got through the value engineering process to see if there was a need for any alternate funding after those value engineering options were explored. Now, as City Manager Cook had mentioned, when we talk about value engineering, we're not talking about decreasing the quality of the park. What we're talking about is taking a look at some custom designs, one-off designs, and utilizing comparable off-the-shelf items where we may not exactly be able to mimic the custom design element, but we feel we've come up with a very comparable design element without diminishing the quality of any of the site furnishings. I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, and this really illustrates what we're going to be taking a look at in terms of the 4 different aspects of the bid that we want to value engineer. So there's the decorative fence panels, there's precast concrete seating, and shade structures. And really what we're looking at is a custom versus the value engineering prefabricated options. And then finally, we'll take a look at our playground options where a more developed, intricate design, and we can go back to a simpler design that would realize some cost savings as well. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that first item, which is our decorative fence panels. Again, just as an overview for the city council, this is our approved concept design, and all these elements will still be maintained. And it's just a matter of if it's the council's desire to take a look at those prefab options versus those custom options. So with the top, and I'll go ahead and use my highlight. So can everybody see the red dot that pops up on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So this top portion in orange is the custom design, and that is what was bid on by the contractors. So this is a sheet steel design that's cut out, and it has this intricate pattern as a custom design. Working with our design architect, David Volt's design, they were able to locate a similar look and feel prefabricated design, this custom fence paneling. And again, we feel that this very, very closely replicates that look without sacrificing that quality of the product. So in terms of where this is located on the park, if you follow the red highlighted point on the map, it's this bottom section of the park that's highlighted in orange, and that'll be a direct replacement for that custom item. Again, if it's the desire of the council to approve that that design change. I'll go through each one of these options, and then at the end, we'll talk about potential cost savings at that point. Mary, did you want me to stop right now to entertain any questions, or did you want to get through all the options first?
I think, are there any questions from council at this point? If not, please move on.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, council member.
All right.
Okay. Please go ahead, Director Matsumoto.
Sure. Thank you, Mary. So the next option is the precast concrete seating. So again, originally what was spec'd out in the bid was a custom design. So on this left-hand side is the custom design, and all that precast concrete seating is in red. And this is a custom design where you see the curvatures incorporated into the seating around the playground area down here and around the picnic seating area in the top right-hand corner of the park project. Now on the right-hand side is our prefabricated design alternate. Again, this is that value engineering component. So you'll see this bottom leaf style precast concrete seating, as well as this curved bench. So everything in red is replaced with this leaf style precast concrete bench. And that's down here in circling the playground area, as well as up top in the picnic shelter area. This curved bench seating will be in these two yellow landscaped areas. And that's really 3 seat options for that curved seat. So again, we're taking this custom design, value engineering, something that is prefabricated off the shelf at a much lower price point to replicate that look and to have that option for council to consider. Finally, in terms of the custom versus prefabricated options is the shade structures. So there's a total of 4 shade structures that we're taking a look at tonight. There are 3 rectangular shade structures that I'm highlighting that are around the open grass area, the open lawn area of the park. And these options originally were custom designs that incorporated a similar steel pattern paneling as the decorative fence. And all of this work was custom design work. So again, one-off work, and that was incorporated around the open lawn area, as well as this fan-shaped structure above the picnic area. Now, again, going to a more prefabricated design, which is down here below, we would be utilizing a trellis style shade structure around the open lawn area, and then this curved fan-shaped cantilever style shade structure over the picnic area. Now, again, these options are off-the-shelf options. The longevity and everything is expected to be the same. Again, that quality is mimicked. What the difference is that custom design look versus more of the off-the-shelf design options, but they do have very similar looks and feel for all of those options. Those are,
Quick question.
yes.
Yeah.
Councilmember.
Yeah, is the amount of shade the same for both of them?
Yes, again, that's one of the benefits of having this off-the-shelf option is we're able to decrease the engine or the cost engineering and materials and still maintain the same amount of shade. So there's still going to be the same amount of shade panels. The coverage will still be exactly the same. All we're really changing is the design elements of the shade structure.
I assume it's all metal, right?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, and then finally, the other option we'll take a look at. The other option we'll take a look at is our playground feature. So this feature is something that we have more control over, and we actually can spec out more closely the costs and the savings associated with this. So this is what was initially brought to council for review. It incorporated this flower style shade structure that's incorporated into the playground equipment, as well as some standalone shade elements. Now, we took a look at doing some more custom design work to try to mimic a camellia flower, or to try to, you know, add some additional elements to make it more distinct and unique. Upon talking with the playground vendor, doing and bending the metal in a way to mimic the camellia flower would have been a very, very, very costly item to do. So what they proposed was doing a double layer style shade structure. So this created a little bit more depth in terms of that design. Now, in creating that more custom look and creating that depth of design for the playground, what it did was increase the cost of the playground. So what we have spec'd out and what's part of that overage is this upgraded playground design. If for the council to consider, you know, these would be the two options that you would take a look at and see if, you know, the quote unquote value engineering design of a single layer shade structure is worth the cost savings versus, you know, this double layer design feature. Now, the colors are all interchangeable. The color of the metal, so that's the support areas and then the framing of the shade, that's all customizable. Really, the color palette is opened up to anything that we desire. So these are just examples. This isn't an approved color scheme. And that's something we would visit with the standing committee to get further direction on before we bring to council on specifying the actual color for the playgrounds. But that's not going to affect the costs at all. Right now, we're focused more so on the design and whether it's the council's desire to you know, utilize that single layer look for some cost savings for that element. What I'll next speak to is our potential savings and our alternate funding sources. So right now, based on our estimates, and really their estimates on our hard costs, we're looking at potentially $150,000 to $250,000 savings if we move towards the prefabricated options for the decorative fence panels, the precast seating, and the shade structures. Unfortunately, we're only able to give an estimate because none of these numbers can truly be determined until after the award of bid, where we would be able to converse in more detail with the low bidder to be able to find what the true cost savings would be. But this is a potential estimate that we feel fairly confident relaying to the council at this point based off of the costs for the off-the-shelf prefabricated items. For the playground equipment design, it's roughly $100,000 difference between the single layer flower shade design versus the double layer flower shade design. So that's an accurate number that we know. If the council's direction is to go with a single layer option, you would find from just the playground alone $100,000 savings. on the project itself. Finally, with that, we wanted to also identify alternate funding sources, just in case, maybe it's the council's desire to keep everything custom and they like the look of the original plan, that there's other alternate funding sources where we wouldn't need to go directly to the general fund or reserves to cover those cost differences. So all of these funding sources are unallocated funding sources. So that means we don't have them currently earmarked for any projects. So for AQMD, we have $53,000 that could be used for the EV charge stations. We have $30,000 in art and public places funds that can be utilized on the art components of the project. Measure A is a county funded source pot of money, and there's $600,000 that's allocated to the city of Temple City, and that can be used on any of the park elements. And then finally, we have $2.1 million of unallocated funds in the landscape and lighting district. Again, those funds could be utilized for any portion of that project. So, really, we just wanted to provide these alternative and options to council to consider before we move forward with that with the project. Before you, we have recommendations to the council. The recommendations would be to award the lowest responsible bidder, which is CEM, the contract, and authorize the city manager to move forward with that at $2.4 million. Authorize the awarded contract and direct purchase of the playground. Authorize at 10% of the awarded contingency amount, and then direct staff to seek that value engineering opportunities after the award of contracts. So I know it's a lot of information to go over. We can definitely shift back and forth in the presentation to take a look at the different options. But at this time, I'm open to any questions the city council may have regarding this process, the value engineering process, and then the award of bid or any other components that I presented on tonight.
Mayor,
Thank you, Director Matsumoto. Yes, Mrs. City Manager.
thank you, Mayor. You just briefly as well. One thing that's not noted is under the motion that if the council were to consider seeking the value engineering opportunities, I would then ask that if that's the direction of the council tonight, that they also direct me to return back with the use of any of those funding sources that you saw prior for appropriation, because at this point in time, all I have authorized for is the $2.9 million in the grant funding, of which we're going to try to gear towards to the best of our ability. But if we do go over that amount, I would have to come back and ask for that authorization at a later date, assuming the award of bid tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. City Manager. So I'd like to call on the council members. If you have any questions, starting with Outgoing Mayor, Council Member Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor Yu. I just have one quick question. In our staff report, it indicates that the amount for the award of the playground equipment is $421,000, and I believe on your PowerPoint you said it's $425,000. So, which is the correct amount?
What we received as a quote and estimate was $421,000. Let me pull up the exact.
$617.30.
$617, correct. So
that's the recommendation on the staff report, but you were asking for a little bit more than that, I believe.
Correct. For the recommendation is $425,000, and that was just to build in potential cost increases. The freight on that was an estimated cost in terms of the quote that we had received. So we just wanted to allow the city manager Cook that balance just in case it propped up a little bit more. But we wouldn't anticipate it if it does move up very much at all. It was just to not have that exact amount, and then it ends up coming, let's say, a few $100s over, and then we would have to come back to reauthorize a higher amount.
No, I don't have a problem with that. I just, for purposes of making the motion, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then City Manager Cook, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly, that You wanted added to the recommendation that if we do direct staff to seek engineering opportunities after the award of the contract, or seek value engineering opportunities, you also want recommendation to return back with the use of the funding sources that are mentioned for authorization. Is that correct?
Yes, please, Councilmember Chavez.
All right, just want to make sure. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Viscar, any questions for staff?
I had the kind of the same questions that Councilmember Chavez had, and I think they're answered. What's the target overage?
Right now, we're a little over 500,000. If we're getting to the exact details, we're about 516,000 projected over. That includes the contingency, which is $247,000. In terms of this cost savings, if we do the value engineering opportunity, we know for sure there's a $100,000 savings with the playground with the single layer design. With the other elements, the shade elements, the precast seating elements, and then the decorative fence panels, that's an estimate at this point, but we feel fairly confident it's roughly $100,000 to $250,000 cost savings. Again, unfortunately, we won't know that until after the award of bid. Once we contact the low bidder and see what the true cost savings would be for those prefab options. But there is a significant savings, strictly from a material cost by going off the shelf with the prefab options.
But it sounds, even after a value engineering effort, it sounds like you're still gonna be in the hole at what, 200,000 to 400,000?
Potentially. The contingency allowance is in case something comes up with a project where there would be a change order and there would be an add-on in the cost. In speaking with our project manager and city engineer, Mr. Kayer, we're pretty far along the project. The construction documents were drafted in a way where we don't expect any change orders. So if that contingency amount is really not touched or utilized, there could be roughly a $200,000+ savings there. But we build it into the project as a, as a precaution to take into those overages should they account for. So what's difficult, and I know that makes it difficult on the council, is that we're not necessarily dealing with concrete numbers until once we award the bid, get the value engineering true cost savings, and then as we progress through the project, knowing if we are going to have to dip into that contingency or not. So when City Manager Cook mentioned about authorizing the alternate funding sources, we may not have to come back to the council if we don't need to use that, or it may be some point later in the project when a contingency change order comes into play and then bumps us into needing to evaluate those alternate funding source opportunities. So I wish I had more concrete answers, but at this point there's some variability until we award that contract and move forward with the project.
I'd be willing to bet you a really nice lunch on change orders.
Sure.
But okay,
All right.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Member Viscar. Councilmember Mint, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You just from a long-term maintenance standpoint, is there any big differences between the single versus double shade structure in terms of cost or ease or convenience?
Councilmember Mann, I'm actually thankful that you brought that up. I meant to mention it during the staff report, but by shifting from a custom design to a prefab off-the-shelf design, as you can imagine, there is a long-term maintenance cost savings, and that comes into play when there's let's say, damages with the, let's say, shade fabric, if there's a windstorm, if we run into vandalism issues with the decorative fence paneling, all of that is more easily replaced when we're working with prefab off-the-shelf items. When we're working with custom items, that could, one, delay repairs or replacements. It could make it more costly because we're now having to replace a one-off design versus something that's prefabricated and off the shelf. So yes, if you're taking that into consideration beyond just the current cost of the project, there are anticipated savings down the line from a ongoing maintenance standpoint that it would be cheaper to address those issues with a prefabricated design.
Okay, thank you. And just one last question, just roughly from a timetable standpoint, what is the value engineering process? How much time what does that usually take, assuming something was awarded tonight?
Sure. We wouldn't anticipate it taking very long, and in terms of the time frame, we're probably looking at weeks to a month or so in terms of getting more concrete numbers to work with. We've done our homework on our end, on the city side, working with David Volt's design to determine what are our alternate options for those prefabricated designs. So all that legwork has already been completed. If we hadn't done that, then that would have extended out that time to explore those value engineering opportunities. In order to maintain the continuity of the bid process, we really can't discuss those items with the potential bidders. So that's why it has to wait till after the award of contract to be able to explore that. So in terms of timeline, we're looking at a few weeks up to a month to get more specific cost savings on those three items. And again, that's something we can bring back to the council as an update to present on what those concrete cost savings are and where we're at with the budget for the project. Okay,
thank you. And my last question, kind of segueing off of that last one, in terms of the alternative funding sources that are listed, are some of those based on annual allocations by fiscal year, or like, for example, is the AQMD money, is that something that gets carried over year by year, or is it something that you use within a particular time frame?
It varies on the funding source. So for example, the Measure A money, that's an accumulation of 3 years of annual allocation for the city. The city is able to collect and roll over 5 years worth of that Measure A money. So we're not at a point with any of the funding sources where if we don't use it, we lose it situation. The Art in Public Places funding, that's a development funding source. So that's all dependent upon, new projects that are being built. But it's all of these are what I want to say, they're existing known amounts of money that are accessible to the city. So it's not as if we're banking on these, in terms of an annual allocation that needs to come in. These are kind of verifiable pots of money that we can work off of. For the light and landscape district money, City Manager Cook, maybe if you can, I'm not quite as familiar with that funding source, but I believe that's not it is a rollover from previous funds, but maybe you can speak more to, if there's a timeline in terms of needing to spend that pot of money or not.
Thank you. No, there is not a timeline related to that. And that money is freed up because of the legislation that was passed 2 years ago by Senator Rubio, consolidating our two districts together. So that legally allowed us to use that funding now, that unallocated fund balance, towards park improvements. So that is why that money is there, and it does not have a time frame in which to be spent.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, Thank you, Councilmember Mann. I just want to ask a clarification question. So perhaps any city manager or director Matsumoto or Mr. Kaya can answer. That is that if we were to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, and the value engineering items that we're looking at, while we're negotiating and investigating, making final determinations, those items would not prevent the city and the contractor to get work started. Am I right?
You are correct.
So, while we're interested in, getting the value engineering items negotiated and finalized, I think by awarding tonight, I think we will free up the contract in the city staff to start pursuing the construction, get construction underway. In other words, breaking ground.
Absolutely. Good things like grading and other things that we can start to get going right away without jeopardizing anything related to the value engineering components of the project could start to move forward. Yes, sir.
All right. That's all the questions I have. At this point, I'd like to open up the public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any email requests to speak?
Mayor there are no email public comments.
So at this time, we'd like to open up for callers. If there are callers, the caller's audio will be unmuted, and please say your name if you want to speak.
There are callers on the line.
Please say your name if you want to speak. Hearing none, I will close public comment. At this point, I'd like the council to make final comments, and starting again with Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Chavez?
You're muted, sir.
I'm
You're muted.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
you're on mute.
I have sort of kind of a legal question. Does the contractor have to agree to the value engineering component that we're talking about tonight?
Yes, sir. I'll let Mr. Kayer give kind of the most detailed answer, but the way that the bid was structured authorized the city to make changes in the total value of the contract up or down to a certain floor and a certain ceiling. And based on his analysis, Mr. Kayer believes that the value engineering being discussed tonight would be within that range. Ali, can you agree with that one?
That's sufficient. I wanted to hear from the lawyer.
Well, thank you, sir.
I'm looking at this, and of course, those things come to my mind because, in effect, we're awarding a contract with the hope of making the changes after the contract has been awarded. Is that a fair statement?
This is Ali. I lost connection for a few minutes, so I didn't hear in between.
That's okay. The question was actually directed to our city attorney.
I'm sorry.
So, no, Ali, thank you very much. Yes, sir. We are definitely looking to make changes. Oftentimes in public contracts, there are change orders. The mayor and Councilmember Vizcarra mentioned that themselves in their questions. Change orders are not unusual. We're just, in this case, essentially admitting from the get-go that there are going to be some change orders, and specifically in this case with materials that are going to be part of the work. Again, based on the analysis that was presented to me, it looks like it will be all or almost all of the same labor will be applied to the project. What we're really looking at is the material changing. So in that instance, we'll have to see what the contractor says, but it's the type of change order that, hopefully is something they can work with.
Okay, thank you. No further questions or comments.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Viscara, any final comments?
Yeah, Mr. Murphy? Is there a dollar limit on the level of change orders, either up or down?
That was what I was asking Mr. Kayer. My recollection is it's a 25% floor and ceiling, but Ali, can you help me with that, sir?
That is correct. 25% plus minus is the ceiling.
Okay. Thank you. That's
I-
really, go ahead.
I might add, Councilmember Viscara, at least my understanding of the way I've been practicing project management. Yeah, the floor, the ceiling is 25, but there's really no floor as such. At least that's the way I've been working with my own projects. In other words, you can get more credit. Yeah.
Doesn't the contractor try to protect himself by putting a bottom level, a floor?
You're supposed to. Well, I probably should let the city attorney speak on that one.
Sure, the contractor will try to do that. In this case, given the dollar figure, given the base bid and what we're looking at, we're not going to get to the 25% number anyway. Really, again, what we're looking at is 4, potentially 5 items. And, the dollar figures were discussed earlier. They really are looking at, somewhere in the 10 to 20% range of contract value. So I don't see it being as much a legal issue as it is a contract oversight issue, which is where Mr. Matsumoto and Mr. Kayer will really take lead, and I'll be backing them up in that regard.
And the risk really is for us, not for the contractor in this case.
It should be. Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Mint. Any final comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say in general, I appreciate the presentation, and I do concur with the suggestions in the staff report. I do want to note, at least if we go back to the original council motion on the Primrose project, I would expect that the alternate funding sources will be a last resort for us. The original direction was intended to capture it entirely within the grant amount that we received, which we thought would have been sufficient to cover everything, including contingency. So, but as any project goes, as Councilmember Viscara mentioned, things change, materials change. So this is what I see as a good attempt to try to keep it within that. I mean, from my perspective, it's nice to have a backup plan like alternative funding source, but if we're honest with ourselves, that money could really be elsewhere. But it's nice to have that backup plan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Min. Yeah, I must say, I am very happy to actually, even though the bid result did come in higher than we thought, I must say that DVD, our landscape architect, Mr. Matsumoto, and Mr. City Manager and Mr. Kaya have done a good job, because had we not done a good job, we are not going to get 15 bids. So, and then the bids, I had looked at them as part of the standing committee. I had looked at some of the bid number. They're kind of close to each other, and typically that's the reflection of how well the documents are being prepared. There are no big gaps. That's why all the numbers, they're fairly close to each other. So if we were not to award tonight and try to change the plan, we would have to reject our bid and totally rebid. And that means potentially several months of delay. And with 15 bids right now, there's no guarantee that if we were to rebid this, put us on the street again, make these changes, that we would necessarily have resulted in lower cost. So I appreciate staff's recommendation that we should move ahead and allow the project to get started while we're negotiating the change orders. And I also agree that appreciate the identification of new funding sources. So I think it's always good to have, like Councilmember Men put, a backup plan. Knowing that within the 2.9 million that we have from the state, some of that will pay for the hard cost, some of that will pay for the soft cost, consisting of the staff time and also design costs. But there's still a contingency cushion in there. While I agree with Councilmember Vizcarra, chances are we'll issue some change orders. The hope is that at some point by value engineering, we would not be dipping into the extra funding too much. So I agree with Mr. City Manager's recommendation after the negotiations of all the value engineering items, that he would bring this back to the City Council, and then we can consider what best funding source to use. So those are my comments. At this time, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we award a public works contract to CEM Construction Corporation as the lowest responsible bidder for the Primrose Park project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract in amount of $2,470,087.50, and that we award a contract for direct purchasing of playground equipment through CMAS, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract in an amount not to exceed $425,000. Further, that we authorize 10% of the awarded contract amounts as contingency allowance to be used if necessary. And lastly, direct staff to seek value engineering opportunities, but with the direction that the city manager return back with the use of alternate funding sources mentioned for council authorization.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh.
Okay.
Go ahead,
There's a
William.
motion, a second. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Vizcarra?
Yes.
Mayor Yu?
Yes. So the motion carry, and we're on our way to getting our first park in 60 years since the city has established. We're taking the first step here, the city construction. So thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Matsumoto, and thank you, Mr. Kaye, for moving the project. So moving on, item 11, updates from Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Yu, members of the council. I'll try to be brief, a few items tonight. First, Mayor Yu, congratulations on your
Thank you.
as mayor, and to Councilmember Chavez, it's been one heck of a year. Thank you for indulging me and working with me over the last year. It's a year like we'll never forget. So in many ways. So and thank you to the entire council for your support, leadership in this last year as we get through hopefully this, as I think Mayor Pro Tem Sternquist brought up, in the next 4 to 5 months and getting through this last hump. And we've done it so well, and it's been so much of your support in terms of how we're operating, the resources you've been providing us to move forward. So thank you all very much. Speaking of resources, and I'll let the mayor speak to this later as well. Thank you to his connections as well, and providing some marriage to the Harold Christian Health Center. And thank you to the council for their authorization to use the facilities at Live Oak Park for a clinic that will be happening this coming Thursday and Friday, completely sold out in terms of 800 vaccinations both days. You may have saw it on the news. The Harold Christian Health Center has been rotating between Monterey Park, San Gabriel, Arcadia, and now Temple City this week. There was a news item earlier today about some of the activity at Mark Keppel. And with that too, we've been working with Temple City Unified School District as well to provide some of their 1B eligible employees to receive vaccination to assist them with their safe and diligent reopenings. Also too, we had last week, we had a busy week of community outreach. Mr. Reimers, our community development director, hosted, along with our consultants, a housing element workshop with the public, which had a relatively good group of folks, interesting questions, but also just the challenges of what the state of California has done in terms of the legislation of how we have to work through our most recent housing element. We will be coming back to the Planning Commission and then the council with some of the feedback that we've received from the public and some of the general ideas of what that housing element will look like before we bring it to you for adoption. As Councilmember Chavez mentioned, Citizens Academy was last week. Thank you for his work on State of the City. All these things I need to thank staff for, Ileana Flores, Tinny Chan, and our media partners, Red 88. They really do an outstanding job. They provide real value, but they also provide production value that at the end of the day provide something for the public that they can enjoy, but also be educated about as well and engaged with. So thank you to them for making something that's usable for the public, very tangible, and very user-friendly. Along those lines, the Camellia Festival, which Red 88 assisted the Camellia Festival with as well. Lots of views of that over the weekend. Lastly, a mailer did go out last week related to the changes in the trash service. We received about 40 calls to City Hall in total, a few emails here and there, but I think the public does understand the change that is coming, why the change is coming, and now it will truly be incumbent upon Athens to do a good job of implementing that in the community over the next few months. That is a quick summary of my city manager's report, Mayor Yu. Thank you,
Mr. Cook. Next item is updates from Mr. City Attorney and Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to you, sir. Look forward to this year under you. Thanks to Outgoing Mayor Chavez for incredible leadership during the worst year we can imagine. Not a lot in the way of law for today. I will open by mentioning that the federal government announced today that by the end of May, they expect that any adult who wants to get the vaccine should be able to, due to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine coming online. In light of that, two items that may be of interest. There's a bill pending in the legislature that would slightly refine or revise oversight over fireworks, increasing fines at the state level, which would allow us to increase fines at the local level for illegal use of fireworks. I know that was something we discussed last year, and certainly something that's been on my radar. Also, there's a Senate bill pending that would allow for the long-term use of Zoom, GoToMeeting, and similar devices for the public to continue to be involved in meetings even after we are all back in the same room again. Given the potential cost implications of that, that's something we're keeping our eyes on as well. We'll keep reporting on both of those as we go, but those are the two big things on my plate today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next is council items separate from the city manager's regular agenda. Starting with Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mary Yu. First of all, I just want to again thank all of you for your kind comments. I've received many emails and texts the last couple of days, and I want to thank everyone for their kind words. But just reiterate that, it was a team effort, and I'm very proud of the job that the city has done these past 12 months. Also, I failed to mention earlier, and I want to thank our partners at Temple City Unified School District, especially thank Superintendent Fricker, our school board, our principals and teachers. They kindly included me in many of their events this past year, trying to keep alive, of course, many of their events as well, including the graduation ceremony and things. Of course, a lot of that was very different, a lot of virtual meetings as well. And, I'm glad to see that we're going to also be helping them out with getting some of their employees vaccinated. So that's another thing that we can look forward to doing together. Want to send special thanks to Director Matsumoto, Ali Kair, of course. You can probably hear my grandfather's clock going on. Sorry about that. Forgot to stop it. So I'll try to speak a little bit louder. But thank you to the ad hoc committee members, of course, getting this Primrose Park. It's a long time coming, and I think we're all looking forward to this park coming to fruition soon. So thank you for all your hard work on that. And with that, that's all I have for this evening. And congratulations, of course, congratulations to Vince and to Cindy. I know you guys will do a fantastic job.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez, and really couldn't say enough how much we appreciate your leadership during such a special year as mayor. Thank you so much. Councilmember Vizcarra, any items separate from the council agenda?
Well, not really, not much. It sounds like you're going to have a much easier year this year, Vince.
Well,
we'll try and make it as easy as possible for you. How's that?
Yes. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate all the work everybody's been doing, all the way from Brian and down. Thank you all. And I almost feel like it's New Year's instead of March, because it's the end of an era with Tom leaving and Vince coming in. So it's been really great working with you guys this past 6 months. Thank you all. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitt.
Well, thank you, Mayor Yu. I didn't mention it earlier, but I do want to say I really enjoyed Outgoing Mayor Chavez's State of the City address. I thought it was really well put together. He essentially hit on all of the important items that all the changes that we've undergone in the last year, from programming changes and the way we've adjusted services. So I really enjoyed that. I like that you were filmed from multiple locations, and it was all seamlessly put together. I felt like just the level of professionalism it was like a very professionally well developed, almost like mini series or docu-series. So that's I do want to give a shout out to Red 88, because we've seen their work over the years, and just it gets better and better. So that's pretty awesome to see that. Next, I do want to just give a shout out to everyone who made the Camellia Festival, the virtual Camellia Festival, possible. I also enjoyed that. It was pretty creative, the way they put together a lot of things, especially the orchestra and the band, having all the different individual band member was playing from, I'm guessing, their home, and it was all kind of put together into collage or a montage of pretty neat. I know it's unusual times, but it doesn't underscore the amount of time and dedication everyone put in to make that possible. So that was pretty awesome. Next, I do want to say the Citizens Academy was an astounding success. I really appreciate everyone's collective effort in making that happen. I personally went through the last Citizens Academy back in, was it 2014, maybe around that time, and I've got a lot out of it, and I hope everyone who joined that had a similar experience. We certainly got some good feedback towards the end. I hope it's something we can build upon. I know everything's virtual now, but there's, in some ways, having certain things recorded or pre-recorded or any kind of combination of allows greater accessibility to information, better transparency, and just, I think overall, if more people are interested in how city businesses, how things work, the better we are off as a city with a more informed constituency. So I hope to see that develop in the future. And yeah, I'm looking forward to like Fernando mentioned, I probably wouldn't call it a new era, so, but I know what you mean. I think I'm optimistic, and hopefully with all the new vaccine rollouts that we get closer and closer to a larger percentage of our population being immunized and less cases. Because yeah, it's been a tough year for a lot of folks, especially those who can't avoid being in contact with others because of their work. It really, I think COVID really brought that to light, that for some folks that they just inherently, they're at much greater risk than others who may be able to work from home. So I just continue to thank and show my gratitude everyone, from health workers to our public safety folks, anyone who's really their work hasn't really changed all that much in the last year in terms of not being able to do that remotely. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mann. I want to echo what you just said too, and it's probably one of the greatest State of the City address that I've ever heard. And I mean, what really impressed me was not only the Mayor Chavez giving the speech, but how seamless it was. The 1 second he was taking off his mask, the next second he's standing outside somewhere. It's almost like, it felt like you're the super mayor, Mayor Chavez. You'll be able to fly through walls and show up in different places. That was really amazing. So, obviously, thank you all the staff that supported that effort, Renton 88, Ileana, and Teeny. But that was really something else. I was really impressed. So I'm gonna watch that again after this meeting.
Real quick, Vince, real quick, I don't want to be interrupted, I'll just share real quickly. I have a new appreciation for actors and what they go through. I always wondered, well, why are they there all day? And why are they doing this? It takes them so long. Well, I was at City Hall from 9 o'clock that morning till 5 o'clock that evening, and different takes and different locations. And you're right, I have to give a lot of credit to Mark and Travis and Lynn, who were there from Red 88, and the job they did. It's their work is amazing, and I knew they would do a great project at the end. And I haven't seen it myself, actually. I was there. I did it myself, so I don't really probably need to watch it, but I will, just to see the finished product. But it's quite a production, believe me. But well worth it.
It is great.
Thank you.
It is
Thank
great.
you very much.
Yeah.
Well, then
yeah.
I have to jump in and echo that too, because I was watching it and I was really impressed by how seamless it was and how it just flowed. William hit the nail on the head on that one. Well done, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't as seamless as you might think,
No, but it gave the appearance of being.
but certainly the
That's
finished
certainly-
product was.
Yeah, certainly it was a great speech, and thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
But I think
Thank
it really captures the spirit of Temple City, right? Even during this pandemic. So really heads up to Mr. City Manager Brian Cook, his staff of jumping on the vaccination, and I'm so glad that we are able to bring this to our own hometown here to serve our residents and neighbors. And thank you. Looking forward, and I really appreciate all those who on city staff who are volunteering to help out with this event. So looking forward to a great event. We passed the consent calendar tonight, but there's one item I kind of wanted to bring to everybody's attention. We did pass the second reading adoption, essentially the garbage and rubbish disposal ordinances. You know, I know Mr. City Manager mentioned there are like 40 calls and feedback on the flyer that we sent up. But I think I really want to emphasize one thing that perhaps people may or may not understand, because some of the comments were regarding costs and why we're doing this and that. I really want to emphasize that Temple City really does not have an option here. It's not something that we don't have an option to stay status quo. The state has mandated a new way of collecting and disposing of certain trash, namely the recyclables and namely the organics. And we stay with twice pickup a week, instead of having 2 trucks come twice a week, you're going to see 3 trucks coming twice a week. And not only that, the special handling and separation and processing of the recyclables and also the organic. So the whole point of changing the 2 twice a week pickup to once a week pickup is really to offset the cost. And I also want people to understand, it may seem counterintuitive, is that we actually generate the same amount of trash, whether you pick it up twice a week or once a week. So the fact that we're only doing it once really doesn't reduce the cost that much. However, everything added together is to help the city to offset the extra cost in collection and processing. And that's really why we're making those changes. And I want people to understand that is a very careful consideration. The council had and city staff have come up with this way of dealing with the state mandate. So that's all my comments. I'm looking forward to the next year. So with that, I'll open up for additional public comments on items not listed. Are there any calls or emails, Madam Clerk?
Mayor, there are no email requests to speak.
Okay. How about comments on phone calls? Through phone calls, any people calling in?
We do have one member of the public.
Okay.
But no requests.
Hearing nothing, and I will close additional public comments. The meeting is adjourned, and have a good evening, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.